Little delay there, folks. I'm still sort of recovering from my trip to Atlanta, and if anyone's asking whether or not I'm going to make a video about MomoCon 2013, well, I'm working on it, but I don't have much considering how crowded the place was, but that's not why you're here. The Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. The franchise has jumped into the 16-bit world. Was it as good as, say, Super Mario World, or Super Metroid, or Super Castlevania 4? Well, absolutely. I'm not spoiling anything by saying this is one of the most acclaimed titles in the franchise's history. But I don't know. This is 2013 and no longer 1991. Is the game still as good as it was back then? Well, let's pop this baby in and find out. Okay, now that we got the establishing shot done, let's really play the game on the Virtual Console. One of the things I find the most interesting about doing these reviews is revisiting games I used to play a lot of back in my childhood and seeing how well they've held up to my standards of today. Sometimes playing something new or older can open your eyes and make you see things from a different perspective. I've been playing A Link to the Past for well over a decade now, but this is the first time I've played this game immediately after Zelda 1 and Zelda 2. So I'm dying to see how many things this game really changed for the better or worse, if appropriate. Well, if we want to start talking about changes, let's start with the plot. Let's get one thing clear here, folks. Zelda's overarching story across the many games on consoles and handhelds is an absolute mess. For years, one of the greatest debates in video game history was trying to establish a coherent timeline that connects every Zelda game together while still trying to make some sort of sense. Even after the release of the Hyrule Historia, which contains an official timeline of the series according to Nintendo, the debate still rages on to this day. I'm not even going to begin to explore that kind of stuff, but here's my philosophy. I don't care about the timeline. In the end, I play a Zelda game for the story within the game itself, and not how it affects the legend in its entirety. For the curious, A Link to the Past is considered a prequel to the first two Zelda games, though I should note that it's a completely different generation of Link, Zelda, and Hyrule itself. The game's story is a little more sophisticated than the last two titles. In the world of the Zelda franchise, there exists the Golden Land, which contains the sacred Triforce itself. For years, many people have fought and died in an attempt to reach the Golden Land and make their wishes come true with the Triforce. Eventually, an evil energy begins to emit from the Golden Land, causing more havoc to occur. To put an end to the madness it brought, 7 sages combined their powers together to seal up the way to the Golden Land, bringing peace to the land of Hyrule. Wait, what the hell's up with this one? Is he on his knees or is he just really short? I'm sorry for breaking the immersion like that, but it's kind of distracting. Generations later, an evil wizard known as a god Nim discovered the means to unlocking the way to the Golden Land and put a plan into motion. He gained the trust of the king of Hyrule, and holy shit, he incinerated him! Damn, that's kind of overkill, don't you think? Anyway, a god Nim kidnaps the 7 maidens of Hyrule, who have family ties to the original 7 sages, and plans on using their powers to connect the Golden Land, which is almost entirely evil at this point, and the Light World. One of these 7 maidens is Princess Zelda herself. The adventure begins when Zelda telepathically communicates with Link and pleads for help. Though he's warned to stay home by his uncle, who attempted to rescue Zelda himself, Link travels to Hyrule Castle anyway, where he sees his mortally wounded uncle slumped on the floor. Dude, that wasn't even 100 feet. With his dying breath, Link's uncle bequeaths Link his sword and shield, and suddenly our little hero's ready to kick some serious ass. In no time, Link rescues Zelda from the castle dungeon and leaves her with the priest in the sanctuary. Zelda enlightens Link that he'll need the Master Sword, the Blade of Evil's Bane, to finish off fuck it, I'm calling him Jerry from now on. In order to prove his worth, he needs to collect 3 pendants located in 3 different dungeons sprinkled across Hyrule. Luckily for us, Link is a hell of a lot more versatile than previous incarnations. Or is it future fuck it. We're back to the overhead view for this game, guys, no side-scrolling here. Instead, the developers have spent some time refining the mechanics of the first Zelda game and making something great out of it. And god damn it, they really make something great out of it. Link is now capable of moving in a total of 8 directions, so it's easier to avoid accidentally running into enemies or hazards in general. Swordplay was also improved, as Link doesn't stab enemies anymore, but rather he swings his sword like an actual fucking sword this time, providing great coverage and decent range. Added to that, Link now also has a spin attack, which he can perform by holding down the attack button for a short amount of time. It's great. It hits like a tank, it has great range, and he can use it to maneuver Link without taking his eyes off of the enemy. But if that didn't quite tickle your fancy, Link is now also able to pick up and toss things. I know that doesn't sound too remarkable, but after dealing with Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, this is a fucking godsend. If I had a list of the most satisfying things I can do in a video game, picking up a pot and chucking it at an enemy would rank very high on that list. There's just something so compulsive about it to me. Fuck you, yeah! Because Link is more efficient now, there's rarely a moment in the game that I feel I'm unfairly ganged up on. When I fuck up or run into something, it feels like something I did wrong and not because of limited mobility. It's also because of Link's upgraded skills that this game is certainly not as difficult as the last 2 games when it comes to combat. It's still no walk in the park, mind you, but it's more refreshing, definitely. Hyrule itself is also more alive than ever, well besides sporting the graphical update. Everything is much more visually distinct and packed with set pieces that immediately make an area identifiable. It also helps that by pressing a certain button, oh look at that, look at that! That's what you call a good map. Link is equipped with an entire map of Hyrule itself, and combined with townspeople that actually fucking help you this time around, not only by marking your next location on the map, but by giving you advice you can actually understand, I can easily classify Zelda 3 as a game where you don't need a guide to have a good time. You may still need to use your head to discover the really hidden, optional shit this game contains, but for the most part, you can discover many things on your own. Remember back in Zelda 1 where discovering hidden shit was a real bitch without a detailed map? Well, one of the main reasons why it was so annoying was because hidden stuff were generally located behind a wall that you could blast that looked no different than a normal wall. How did I know to bomb this wall? I had a map. In this game, a wall that can be destroyed is clearly distinguishable from a normal wall either by a different color or by cracks in the wall itself. All you need to have on your part is bombs. That's how I like it. Not only is it not aggravating, it also gives you something to look forward to if you don't happen to have bombs in that particular moment. Thanks to the game's more coherent design, it's very hard to get lost in this game. Even if you find yourself with nowhere to go, there's a fortune teller that can tell you of your next destination at the cost of some pocket change. Nothing in this game is too cryptic, and while that may be a turnoff for some of those hardcore explorers, I'd rather have it this way. This is streamlined, this is fun, and this is what I call a Zelda game. Dungeons are back in action, getting past them not only requires you to bring your sword skills, but your brains. It's nothing too complicated. Sometimes it's as simple as defeating all the enemies in the room to nab a small key to open a door, and other times it's finding the correct switch to open the way to the next room. Things really don't pick up until the later half of the game, where the game expects you to fulfill a number of prerequisites to open a door in a room 2 floors above or below you. Thankfully, the dungeon maps and compasses you can locate inside a dungeon are more than enough to help you progress through the area. The bosses have also been given a massive upgrade. A lot of these guys are outright daunting, despite some of them having oddly simple strategies of defeating them. But if there's one boss I can't fucking stand for the life of me, it's this asshole right here in the third palace. If you're not precise with your attacks, you'll bounce off of him like a rubber ball, and if you fall off the edge, you need to climb up back to the room where the fight restarts, with all of his health restored. Fuck! 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 If you find yourself dying and getting a game over, you begin at the beginning of the dungeon just like Zelda 1. Thank you. If there's one thing I always look forward to in this game, it's getting more goodies and upgrades. Link's arsenal has gotten a tremendous boost. Besides scoring the returning boomerang, the bow and arrow, or bombs, Link can now obtain bottles, which allows him to store magic potions and whatnot to consume later in an emergency. If you manage to capture a fairy with a butterfly net you get early in the game, it'll automatically revive you from death if it's still in the bottle when you die. That's seriously awesome, and I love that mechanic. When you complete the first palace, the Elder Sahaz will give you the Pegasus Boots, which lets Link do an extremely useful dash attack that could also be used as a means to travel through Hyrule faster than ever before. Dungeon upgrades include things like the hammer, which can destroy enemies with rock-hard defenses, and equipment that allows Link to travel more through Hyrule, like the Power Glove. Huh. Who knew that a failed NES accessory allowed you to lift a fucking 2-ton block above your head? Suit upgrades are also back, like different outfits that can increase your defenses, and different shield upgrades that can block certain. It's a good grief. That shield is almost as tall as Link. How the hell can he see where he's going? My personal favorite, however, is the new hookshot. Its main purpose is to allow Link to travel across large gaps, but you can also use it to stun enemies or pick up item drops from a distance. You can even use it to take shortcuts if you know just where to aim. The 3 spells Link can obtain after certain events are also awesome, I think my favorite being the Bombmost attack. Watch those annoying fuckers burn to a crisp. Despite all these cool little toys at Link's disposal, the most important ones are the Magic Mirror and Master Sword. After Link completes the 3 palaces across Hyrule, he can head into the Lost Woods and pull out the Master Sword, the Blade of Evil's Bane. As soon as he yanks the sword out of the ground, Jerry abducts Princess Zelda from the Sanctuary and teleports her into the Dark World with the rest of the 7 maidens. After Link gives Jerry a good game of energy tennis, Jerry sends Link to the Dark World himself, introducing a new mechanic for the Zelda franchise, world shifting. If you thought the game was over when you obtained the 3 pendants needed for the Master Sword, boy are you in for a surprise. Inside the Dark World, Link needs to travel to 7 different dungeons to rescue each of the maidens that were sent there by Jerry himself. This is where the Magic Mirror comes into play. Earlier in the game, you're given the Magic Mirror from this old man that allows you to teleport back to the Light World from the Dark World. Completing the second half of the game not only requires getting through this evil version of Hyrule, but also knowing the proper place to switch between worlds. What could be a desert in the Light World may be a miserable swamp in the Dark World, with danger looming around the corner. It's really not as bad as it sounds though. I think the game does a fairly decent job giving you visual clues to where a teleporter might be located to get inside the Dark World, or where to use the Magic Mirror in the Dark World to get something in the Light World. With 2 worlds to travel through, Zelda 3 is definitely much larger than Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, possibly combined. There's quite a number of things to explore, and most of the time the game rewards you for being curious. It could be a chest that contains a large sum of rupees, or a piece of heart that permanently extends your health when you get 4 of them, or mini-games to earn lots and lots of rupees. The point is, it's always worth it to give things a good look around. The entire structure of the Dark World is also fairly more non-linear than the Light World. You still have to complete Dungeon 1 first no matter what, but after that, the next 6 dungeons are all marked on your map, leaving you the choice of where to go next. This is also where the game starts to get a little more difficult, mainly the boss encounters because some of these assholes hit really fucking hard. The enemy selection also starts to get a little more like Zelda 1, but with Link's upgraded abilities and tools, they shouldn't be an issue at all, with 1 or 2 exceptions. I hate wall masters. These bastards were also in Zelda 1, but here they're relentless. If they manage to grab you, they carry you all the way back to the entrance of the dungeon. That can get pretty damn annoying. Well, at least there's no darkness this time around, and fortunately, whiz ropes aren't as dreadful as they were before either. This is also where the dungeons get a little more complicated, and while I don't think it's anything too difficult thanks to the upgraded map features, there's still a select few that could really drive me up a wall. Fuck you, Ice Palace, I hate you! Fucking ice physics on the floor, there's spikes everywhere, conveyor belts, so many goddamn floors, and this godforsaken block puzzle that requires you to loop around a few rooms just to flick a switch to get this one door to open. And yes, I know I can technically use the Cane of Somaria from Dungeon 6 to make this puzzle a complete joke, but I didn't do that for this review, so I'm gonna bitch! The latter half of the game can get annoying at times, but compared to Zelda 1 and Zelda 2, I think this amount of challenge is just right and well designed. It also helps that the soundtrack is beautifully constructed and has more variety this time. The Hyrule theme sounds better than ever, and the dungeon themes do a great job making the dungeons themselves feel foreboding. Then there's the Kakariko Village theme, which is probably one of the most peaceful themes ever composed in this series. For a while, this was my favorite soundtrack in the series, but it was recently trumped by another title. More on that later. So with the 7 dungeons completed and the 7 maidens rescued, the girls open the way to the final dungeon, which, while difficult, is not as frustrating as the Great Palace from Zelda 2 or Ganon's dungeon from Zelda 1. It can still be a pain in the ass though, especially in this room. Fuck! At the end of the dungeon awaits Jerry, who really doesn't offer any greater challenge than before, and considering you're more pimped out now than before, well, I think you can do the math. However, as soon as Jerry drops, fucking Ganon pops up from his back, revealing that Jerry was just an alter ego of Ganon this entire time. Well, that's really not too surprising. The maidens constantly refer to Ganon throughout your journey. There's Ganon statues all over the place in the final dungeon. If you go through the trouble of mentioning him constantly, you know it's only a matter of time before he inevitably shows up. The fight with Ganon is more irritating than difficult. With the proper upgrades, you can make it past the first phase without taking any damage, but that still leaves the second phase to worry about, where you need to constantly light up the room to reveal Ganon's location to strike him. You also, once again, need the silver arrows to truly finish him, which this game does hint towards better than the first game, most definitely, but you still kinda need to go out of your way to discover that, you know, unless you played Zelda 1 before this. No, wait, oh, yeah, you can fall down during this boss fight too, and just like the battle with this asshole, you have to restart the entire fight if that happens. Well, at least I can recharge my bottles and hearts at a local shop before going back. When Link finally manages to destroy Ganon, a stairway is revealed where Link discovers the Triforce itself. After a bit of backstory, Link grabs the Triforce and makes his wish, destroying the Dark World and restoring the Light World back to its former glory. He even gets his uncle back, and the King of Hyrule is fully restored too. Still, that was a rather gruesome death. With peace restored to Hyrule, Link places the Master Sword back in its pedestal where it sleeps once again. Forever. Nope, couldn't keep a straight face. Christ, talk about a complete 180. While I don't deem games like Zelda 1 or Zelda 2 to be bad overall, this game, I can really appreciate all the changes and upgrades to the formula it brought upon the franchise, and with the first 2 games still rather fresh in my head, the changes are only more apparent. The game isn't perfect by any means. I'll still play Super Metroid or Super Mario World before playing this, but when it comes to a Zelda game, this is the one I immediately think of and jump on. The combat is fun, the upgrades are cool, I love how Hyrule is designed, the map is extremely useful, and the presentation is top notch for a SNES title. If you want to start playing games in the Zelda franchise, you start with this one. Let's put it this way. This game, like the first one, set a fuckload of standards. Standards that every subsequent Zelda game will follow. With this game, I honestly don't think there's a reason to play games like Zelda 1 or Zelda 2 unless you're in the mood for something more archaic or completely different. I play games to have fun, and this game is— Oh god no, I'm sorry, I was hungry, I just got in a torch, my uncle's dead, the king's a skeleton, my hair's pink, I'm not wearing any pants, okay, I'm sorry! The fuck, man? If you don't have an SNES, get it on the Virtual Console, or get the portable version on the Game Boy Advance if you have that. Good old Game Boy player, welcome back, my friend. Anyway, it's pretty much the same game, only the colors are a bit more washed out because, well, it's on the Game Boy Advance. A lot of ports of SNES games had washed out colors. You can make the color scheme a bit darker if you're playing this on the Advance SP or a DS Lite, however. The only thing I don't like about this version is... Yeah, because that's what we needed, the little shit screaming like he's pulling out nose hairs with each swing. The Game Boy Advance version also contains another Zelda adventure called The Four Swords, but I'll save that for another Zelda Marathon. I also need to get 2 more Game Boy Advances to properly play the game. It's not a single player adventure. Unless you bought the Anniversary Edition on the 3DS. Seriously, who the hell used this thing when the Game Boy Advance was the handheld to buy? Why the hell do we even have this? Meh. After tackling through the first 2 games of the franchise, re-experiencing this game was all the more sweeter. But enough about me and sucking this game's dick. We still have 2 more games left to go in the Zelda Marathon, ladies and gentlemen, and these games are quite the doozy. Yes, people still say doozy. We're making the jump to the 3D world with the N64, ladies and gentlemen, with The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time. So see you guys next. I got this hat, Momocon.
出る出るゼルダの伝説出る出る出る出るついに出るゴージャス今度の冒険リアル君もすぐに体験憎いでやんすね昆虫ショー高画質の謎解きアクション戸惑うことなくのめり込もうもちのろんスーパーファミコン